Well, hey there, it's Brent Adams with Inside Farm Life, and I'm back with a new episode. Episode 9 is live now, and you can find that at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Deezer, Audible, and Odyssey, as well as YouTube. This week we bring in Polly Ruhland, who's the CEO of the United Soybean Board, to talk about all the new projects the soybean checkoff has funded for fiscal 2022 beginning in October. A lot of really innovative projects there. We had her on a live stream here not too long ago, and she is a great conversation. So I hope you will go and give that a listen. Then we bring in our buddy Jesse Allen to talk markets this week. He's talking about how a decline in ethanol production is affecting the corn market. So we hope you'll listen to that. Then our buddy the hot rod farmer, Ray Bohacz, is back with another installment of Bushels and Cents, talking about nitrogen fill in your tires and why it should be something that you consider. We know nitrogen is important for these soybeans, also might be the key to unlocking some performance in your tires on your equipment. So hope you can listen to all that. Then we bring in my buddy Bobby Tomberlin, one of the greatest songwriters in Nashville, Tennessee. He's also a great singer. He wrote One More Day for Diamond Rio. He's written for Dolly Parton, Kenny Rogers, Blake Shelton, Jamie Johnson, and the list goes on and on and on. He even has a new cutout with Barbra Streisand and Willie Nelson. And he's got his own song out, I've Lived Country Music, and boy has he ever. He's got a great voice out of Luverne, Alabama. Shout out to the folks in Luverne. We couldn't be more proud of Bobby, and we thank him for his time. Come on and listen to some of this great music on after these messages. And we want to say a special thank you to our friends at AGCO. They've been the presenting sponsor of our content all month long, leading up to the Farm Progress Show next week in Decatur, Illinois. If you're coming to the show, I hope you'll stop by Lot 303 and see the best that they have to offer from Fendt and Massey Ferguson. We're going to be there. I'm going to have a mobile studio set up. We're going to be doing interviews throughout the show. I'll be wandering around a bit, but for the most part, I'll be there with that booth with the folks from AGCO and Fendt and Massey Ferguson. Stop by and say hello. I'd love to meet you. Love to hear about your farming operation. Love to tell you about all the great things we have going on at FarmLife Media and Inside Farm Life, and that's a whole lot. As I've been telling you, we're about a couple weeks away from launching a new website, farmlifemedia.com, where you can find podcasts, you can find a 24/7 internet radio station. We're going to have blogs, we're going to have a whole lot of content that you can check out. Also a forum section where you can go on and share ideas and commiserate and compare notes with other farmers and ranchers and folks in agriculture. So I hope you will be on the lookout for that. We'll post information on our Facebook page, which is now over 180,000 followers. Great place to get your information. So I hope you, if you're not already doing that, make sure you follow that Facebook page. Follow us on YouTube, and that's where we're posting a lot of this content, also going live directly to YouTube. So check all that out. Come see us at the Farm Progress Show next week in Decatur, Illinois. It's going to be Tuesday through Thursday, August 31st through September 2nd. Going to be one of the largest outdoor farm events around, and it's been a long time since we've actually had a chance to go out and do a farm show live. So I am super excited about it, and I hope to see you there. In the meantime, if you're driving to the show, download the podcast, episode 9 of Inside Farm Life. Again, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Deezer, Audible, Odyssey, and YouTube. Well, I tell you what, time for me to get on out of this field here, get back into the studio, start working on next week so we can start packing our bags and heading off to Decatur, Illinois. For now, though, it's Brent Adams, and I want to present to you this week's episode of Inside Farm Life.
Headed to the Farm Progress Show? Stop by the Massey Ferguson and Fendt booths to see some exciting new equipment on display. Experience the future of farming with the Fendt One Cab. Get up close with Fendt's all-new adjustable clearance sprayer, the Fendt Rogator 900. And best of all, witness the North American debut of the Fendt 300, Massey Ferguson 8S and 5S tractors. Come say hello to your friends at Massey Ferguson and Fendt at the Farm Progress Show, August 31st to September 2nd.
Welcome to Inside Farm Life, your weekly connection to agriculture newsmakers, hot-button industry issues, educational features, and the best in true country music. Now, here's your host, Brent Adams.
Well, welcome to another episode of Inside Farm Life, presented this week by our friends at AGCO. We appreciate you spending part of your day with us. On this week's episode, we talk about the United Soybean Board's fiscal 2022 initiatives with CEO Polly Ruhland. Jesse Allen talks about declining ethanol production's impact on the corn market, and the hot rod farmer Ray Bohacz is talking nitrogen inflation in this week's Bushels and Cents. We also hear the music of singer and hit songwriter Bobby Tomberlin, who has a new single out chronicling his amazing journey in country music. We can't wait to tell you all about it, but first, some news. A newly established program has been created to foster timely dairy product donations while benefiting pandemic-impacted producers. USDA Radio's Rod Bain has more.
Following last week's announcement of $350 million for dairy growers via the Pandemic Market Volatility Assistance Program, Agriculture Deputy Secretary Jill Bernal Wednesday announced the publishing of an interim final rule
that will establish the $400 million dairy donation program.
She adds the dairy donation program is the latest in a series of announcements related to $2 billion in dairy-oriented assistance and resiliency programs. Future announcements include
$580 million for supplemental dairy margin coverage
for small and medium farms. Plus,
we will also make a long-term improvement to the feed cost calculation for the dairy margin coverage safety net program to recognize the higher quality alfalfa hay that is more consistent with dairy feed rations.
more dairy donation program details are available online at www.ams.usda.gov/DDP.
The new USDA dairy donation program was modeled after long-running efforts in Michigan.
The partnership started a few years ago between Michigan milk producers and the Food Bank Council of Michigan.
Senate Agriculture Committee Chair Debbie Stabenow talking to reporters Wednesday about her home state inspired DDP when increased child nutrition efforts took place to counter impacts from the Flint, Michigan water crisis.
Michigan milk producers were the first ones to step up and team up with the Food Bank of Eastern Michigan, Kroger, Michigan State Extension, and they donated more than 36,000 gallons of milk.
Michigan Milk Producers Association CEO Joe Diglio acknowledges the $400 million dairy donation program also builds upon existing federal programs like the 2018 Farm Bills,
milk donation reimbursement program,
and dairy donation partnerships.
Also this week, producers of contract poultry and hogs and sales-based commodities now have the opportunity to apply for USDA's Coronavirus Food Assistance Program 2. Rod Bain has the details.
Contract growers, helping them realize an additional stream of income to assist them getting through those economic impacts of the pandemic.
As well as specialty crops, according to Farm Service Agency Administrator Zach Ducheneau.
Also, the sales-based commodities, we made a change there to allow producers to substitute 2018 sales for 2019 sales. Because of the nature of both contract growers and specialty crops, 2019 might not have been an accurate representation of a normal year to be used as an index, so we made that change.
And including grass seed, among other sale-based commodities. Eligible producers now have until October 11th to apply for or modify their CFAP2 applications through local FSA offices. I'm Rod Bain reporting for the U.S. Department of Agriculture in Washington, D.C.
Well, food prices keep going up, and so do the forecasts for this year's food price inflation. Gary Crawford explains.
The general inflation rate, rising demand for food from restaurants, a shortage of food processing workers and truck drivers to transport food, and some shortages of packaging materials. All these factors and more
are driving up the prediction for the price of food in 2021.
Economist Carolyn Chelius tracks and forecasts retail food prices for the Agriculture Department. Prices so far this year rising faster and farther than expected, and
we're seeing prices continue to increase.
She now is forecasting average grocery store food prices to rise this year by from 2.5% to 3.5%. That's 0.5% higher than her prediction last month.
Economy-wide levels of inflation are high, and so it's an overall trend in the economy and not just for food prices. But there have been particular commodities like meats that have been increasing in price much higher than average levels of inflation.
She says beef this year could average as much as 5% higher than last year. Pork maybe 6% higher.
And finally, this week, USDA has announced a proposed framework for a project that could help prevent future human pandemics stemming from diseases in animals. Once again, here's Gary Crawford.
It seems incredible, but according to researchers,
up to 75% of emerging infectious diseases in humans come from animals.
And that includes, of course, COVID. Dr. Mike Watson with the Agriculture Department's Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service. He's part of a proposed project just announced this week to create basically an early warning system of possible human disease outbreaks by doing more animal disease surveillance.
to identify emerging diseases in animals, that we can alert our public health partners ahead of time that we're seeing this in animals, and we can hopefully start taking steps to prevent a huge outbreak in humans moving forward.
The plan first will focus on SARS-CoV-2. That's the virus in animals that causes COVID-19 in humans. But later on, the project would expand to other diseases. Watson says this is not just a USDA thing. It would involve sharing knowledge and working with many U.S. and global agencies on what he calls a One Health approach.
It's combining humans, animals, and the environment.
Initial funding made possible by the American Rescue Plan. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
And now, what is your goat saying? That is a pretty sweet shirt you got on there. Did you get that from GoatLifeClothing.com? Very humorous and stylish. No, you cannot eat this shirt. I know it looks tasty. GoatLifeClothing.com.
Well, next up on Inside Farm Life, the farmer leaders of the United Soybean Board are another group that will have a big presence at this year's Farm Progress Show, and they've scoped out their priority projects for fiscal 2022, and they're a cause for great optimism in the soybean industry. So today we wanted to bring in Polly Ruhland, the CEO of the organization, to talk all about those projects and the innovation behind them. And Polly, welcome in to Inside Farm Life.
Well, thanks. Thanks for the invitation. I'm really happy to be here. And I know that some of y'all will be at Indicator, as you mentioned, next week. We look forward to that show. Lots of my staff will be there and farmers too.
I tell you what, these are encouraging times in the soybean industry, and the farmer leaders of the United Soybean Board gathered recently to discuss checkoff funded projects for fiscal 2022. All those projects are aimed at meeting the checkoff's overall objectives for supply, marketplace, and demand. Could you walk us through the process of how those projects are proposed and evaluated?
You bet. I'll try not to make the process too boring and start off with saying that we get over 500 ideas a year about how farmers can invest their checkoff dollars to the good of soybean farming and agriculture in general. And every one of those projects and programs that are proposed by literally hundreds of organizations around the world and even around the globe are reviewed by farmers. So our farmer board is 78 members appointed by the Secretary of Agriculture. And they just met July. Boy, it's getting into September, isn't it? But they just met in the middle of July to approve the work plan for fiscal year 2022, which starts October 1st for us. So again, 78 farmer leaders all get together several times a year to talk about the programs of work and how they're going to invest those checkoff dollars. As you mentioned, profit opportunities, higher value for soybeans, and the sustainability, economic, social, and environmental sustainability of soybean farmers. That's what we do, and that's what we invest in.
Well, innovation is a key driver behind so many of these projects funded by the checkoff. How does innovation continue to move the soybean industry forward?
You know, first of all, let's define innovation, because I often hear from a lot of farmers about what is innovation? What does that mean? It's a big word that's used a lot. It's name dropped a lot, I guess, in a lot of audiences. And at Soybean, what we mean is using soybeans in new ways that create new value and new uses. We're very interested in sustainability. I know you've probably heard about that before from soybean folks, but we know that the soybean is hugely versatile. And so when you have a versatile product and one of your main priorities is innovation, we can put that versatility to really good work for farmers. We can maximize those profit opportunities. So there are more than 1,000 soy-based industrial products currently on the market. And we want to make that more industrial products on the market every day. We love the diverse uses of soy. So let me just give you an example. In March 21, we ran the Soybean Innovation Challenge, which recognized ag startups and supported ag startups to deliver innovating technologies that allow us to make either new ways to work the field, new ways to determine what our sustainability is, how more efficiently to farm, and also new products in that marketplace. And one of the FAR winners, Regrow, which was formerly Florisat, and you've probably read a lot about Regrow in the press lately, is doing really, really well. And when I say that, I mean they're just growing like crazy, providing a full kind of crop cycle analytics for sustainable and profitable agriculture and other areas in sustainability. So those folks that we had in our innovation challenge, along with all the projects we do every year to mainly in industrial uses to replace petroleum and make those petroleum-based products more sustainable, more renewable, and to use them, specifically U.S.-grown soy, in all kinds of ways that make for a healthy planet and also for a healthy soybean industry. So we're super glad that sustainability is one of our anchors. We're really proud that we have such a large number of products from, oh my gosh, I can't even tell you. The shoes I'm wearing right now, the soles are made of soybeans. We have asphalt and rubber products and paints and sealants and all kinds of stuff. People don't even know all the stuff that's made out of soybeans.
Well, the USDA recently released a report that recognized the United Soybean Board as a forward-looking leader in bioproducts. Can you put that into perspective in terms of the impact that the soy industry has had on the economy through bio-based products?
Yeah, as you mentioned, the economic analysis shows that plant-based products help farmers create a demand for soy. They create a platform for the innovation that we just talked about and for agriculture in general, not to mention the jobs that are created. So bio-based products in specifically that industry supports about 4.6 million American jobs through direct, indirect, or induced contributions. Bio-based products contribute about $470 billion with a B to the U.S. economy, generate about 4.8 jobs in other sectors of the economy for every bio-based job. So that's an 8-to-1 comparison. And displaces, with biofuels, we displace about 9.4 million barrels of oil every year. And those are just some general stats. But when we talk about sustainability, we talk about the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions from bio-based products rather than petroleum products. So that reduction is about 12.7 million metric tons of CO2 equivalent a year. So not only do bio-based fuels like those from soybeans have so many good things to the earth, but jobs and supports the economy to the tune of billions of dollars. So bio-based fuels, bio-based products, including those made of soy, really, really important to the future of the planet, as well as the current and future success of the economy.
One of the encouraging ways in which innovation is being a leader here is in supply oil. And I know work is currently being done to find new ways to recoup lost demand in the edible soy market. One of those strategies is the increased supply of high oleic soybean oil. What are the steps that are being taken there to create a product that will appeal to the food market and industrial end users while increasing profits for growers?
So first of all, let's talk about high oleic soybean oil, how it came about and what is it. Some years ago, there was a regulation that was passed that disallowed soybean oil, commodity soybean oil in some food products. And we responded by creating a genetic stack that created a high oleic version of soybean oil. What's high oleic mean? It means a soybean oil that performs better in fryers. It can be heated to a higher temperature as well as lasts longer in fryers. It has a very different nutritional profile and is very functional in a lot of different products, be that some types of liquid oils as well as cooking, a more esterified oil for cooking. So this year, USB will invest about $17 million across 65 projects in supply, meal, oil, and sustainability. Those are our three primary areas. In high oleic. And the important thing to remember is we lost a lot of demand in the food space for oil when the regulations kind of regulated us out of that space. And we're gaining it back by innovating a new product called high oleic. So now we're focused on building a foundation of material that contains those 4 genes that are needed for soybean varieties. And the high oleic varieties are becoming more popular with farmers because they allow those farmers to produce a premium product, a product that pays a premium to grow it with the same yielding potential as non-high oleic beans. It's a very attractive way for farmers to put part or all of their acreage into an additional revenue crop or a higher value crop. We've had about 600,000 acres of high oleic soybeans planted this year, and we expect more and more acres to be grown. We'll reach the 1 millionth acre milestone next year in 2022. And so We have GMO and non-GMO high oleic varieties. Soyleic is the latest example of a soybean variety that contains high oleic trait technology, but is also non-GMO. So that's another partner that we have in the soy checkoff, Soyleic. The Missouri Soybean Merchandising Council is leading the effort to build momentum in the marketplace for Soyleic. And after about a decade of research, there are about 40,000 acres right now of Soyleic technology in this growing season. What a great product, and what a great hardcore example of how we can invent ourselves and innovate ourselves out of even regulatory problems sometimes.
When we talk about being innovative, certainly sustainability is a hot topic these days. How do the projects that are funded for the coming fiscal year help address sustainability?
We believe that U.S. soy farmers are the most sustainable soy farmers in the world. We have lots of metrics to prove that, but we don't rest on our laurels actually on that. So we're thinking about how we can get more sustainable. And we know that now is a great time, a perfect storm kind of time to prove and improve our sustainability. So when it comes to using the kind of leading edge farming technologies and best management practices to improve those elements of soil health, while also improving economic sustainability and environmental sustainability, as well as social sustainability of rural communities, for example. We are very interested in using those areas of sustainability to position U.S. soy farmers and U.S. soy as the global leader. So one example of the soy checkoff in action in this area is the U.S. Soy Sustainability Assurance Protocol, which we fondly called SSAP. And that can help soybean farmers meet international customer demand for sustainably sourced soy ingredients. There are more than 1 million metric tons of SSAP verified soy exported internationally over the 7 years since that protocol was launched, which was way back in 2014. So you know that we're forward thinking in the soy industry, and we work proactively to solve problems actually before they occur. There are 65 U.S. exporters using SSAP certificates, and our partner at United Soy Export Council found that the North Asia and the Europe regions request now an SSAP verified certificate for nearly 100% of their purchases. So by 2025, when you ask about our sustainability goals, we really want to further reduce land use, soil erosion, and greenhouse gas emissions while we increase energy efficiency. So we want to reduce our land use impact by 10%. We want to reduce our soil erosion by an additional 25%. We want to increase energy use efficiency by 10%, that's in BTUs, and reduce total greenhouse gas emissions by 10% in pounds of CO2 equivalent gases emitted. So we are very interested in furthering our current reputation and strengthening our current reputation for a sustainable, flexible, very useful product for the planet and for the economics of the farmer.
Well, sustainability being one key buzzword these days, another is supply chain. And through the pandemic, we've heard so many concerns about the supply chain, and we've seen, consumers take a greater interest from farm to table where their food's coming. One of the projects on the drawing board is the building of a traceable supply chain through credible, accurate, and a trustworthy tool. What kind of system does the USB envision, and how will that benefit the industry?
We believe at USB that farmer profitability results from cooperative farmer power in the marketplace. And that results from closer communications directly with end users. So what we're exploring is the potential of building those traceable supply chains to get farmers closer to the end users, to understand end users better, and kind of condense the communication chain required between farm and fork. So as part of the model that we envision, farmers would sort of exercise control of their farm data, which is very important to USB. And one of the key things we're working on is farmer control of farmer data, but also to provide assurance to both domestic and international buyers that products containing U.S. soy are not associated with some of the various negative environmental impacts they may have heard soy associated with in the past. So we're doing things like analyzing tracking progress against companies' responsible sourcing commitments. identifying soy farmers aligned with responsible sourcing goals. But remember, it's really important to note that this is just one. The supply chain is just one of the many checkoff-funded sustainability projects. We have Take Action Multi-State Herbicide-Resistant Crops and Weeds Education Program that we run with Purdue University. And we support the shrinking availability of funds to extension outreach. We support outreach on herbicides and use on farm. And it's a multi-state program, which is really good because sometimes you get those extension programs that go state to state and they're kind of in their own little silo. But this is demonstration trials of proven integrated weed management practices. And this project holds meetings that reach thousands and thousands of farmers annually. Also, when you think about the genetics side, we're using genetics and genes from the soybean germplasm collection to mitigate drought stress. We're working with University of Arkansas and the researchers there that are working with USB funding mined the USDA germplasm collection for cultivars that were enriched for 4 critical drought tolerance traits. So this project year that was just approved in July will expand the study of those physiological drought tolerance traits through tools and materials and hopefully move toward availability for on-farm use. So foundational genetic research that makes farmers more viable and more economically sustainable. We're also working with our animal ag customers, which are, of course, the largest customers of soybean meal. So we love the pigs and the cattle and particularly chickens and fish too, if you didn't know that. So this project with animal ag will empower the animal ag leaders to positively affect the future of agriculture. And we're at the table with them. We work hand in hand with our animal ag customers on a daily basis on sustainability.
Well, that's important because another key focus of these checkoff projects is demand meal. And going back to innovation, how will the work being done by United Soybean Board partners through USB funded projects continue to keep U.S. soybean meal a preferred source of animal protein?
Well, the best thing for soybean farmers is if we grow soybeans in this country, we feed them to animals in this country, and then the meat is exported. We do a lot of bean exports, and that's really important for certain areas of the world. But the most value is added when we feed soybeans in this country and export meat. And so animal protein demand globally ultimately drives growth in U.S. soybean meal sales. It's a very high quality feed ingredient that has amino acids and other important nutritional characteristics to animals. So when we think about animal agriculture demand, what we try to do is accelerate work in both animal and aquaculture health and nutrition to build that demand and to prove the way soybeans positively affect the biozymes of animals that eat soybeans. So we have recently funded an animal health study, and it was presented at the International Conference on Swine Nutrition that confirmed an economic return, i.e. a direct relationship between soybean meal and improved weight gain and feed use efficiency in developing pigs. We found in this study, and it's kind of groundbreaking, that soy's vital compounds also improve immune response, provide anti-inflammatory benefits, and enhance that growth of pigs exposed to viral disease challenges. So you're getting an all-natural ingredient. It's not an artificial amino acid, for example, and you're getting multiple benefits in pig gut health. So that was a really important piece of research for us and one we've been working on for several years. We also partnered with the Foundation for Food and Agriculture Research, funding about $3.2 million in research to provide a better bean, to improve the quality of our bean for our customers, particular animal ag customers. We used some of this money, partnership money, to research improvement of protein, both content and quality in U.S. soybeans while protecting overall yield of U.S. soy. We also have partners in U.S. Soybean Export Council, World Initiative for Soy and Human Health, U.S. Poultry and Egg Export, U.S. Meat Federation. All of those help grow overseas demands for soy and value-added soy through the feeding of meat and poultry.
Well, when we talk about exports here, we hear a lot of talk about China, but where are some of the other key growth markets for U.S. soy abroad?
Yeah, a few years ago, we realized before we had the trade disruption with China that we needed to diversify our investments all over and across the world. And the good thing is that we have a consistent and reliable transportation system. Although we can talk about infrastructure on a different podcast and talk about how we do need and are going to get, it looks like, some help to make sure our products ship most efficiently. But we are a top supplier for the world, and we do have new things kind of on the modernization of those transportation issues. And we work hard on infrastructure issues to make sure that the soybeans can get to the markets that you talk about. So diversification has been a really key demand, holistic demand builder. 60% of U.S. soy is exported internationally. Soy exports have doubled in the last 15 years, and exports to China have tripled. We have 4 times growth in exports to Colombia, directly to your question, and 10 times growth in cumulative exports to Ecuador and Peru. And worth mention also is Bangladesh, Pakistan, and Egypt, also shining examples of a successful emerging U.S. soy markets, with total exports growing between 50 and 500% from 2015 to 2019. So I think you can see from all this information that U.S. soy, flexible, sustainable product that the world is recognizing as a leader in many, many areas. And we just can't see a brighter future. I mean, the future for soy is so incredibly bright. We're all excited to make it happen.
Well, we heard about your shoes earlier, and I know there are other items such as auto parts that are using soy today. What are some of the other new soybean uses out there on the horizon that you are particularly excited about?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about biodiesel, and who doesn't get excited about biodiesel, but we also have this whole green diesel revolution, and green diesel also uses soy. So once California passed a mandate for that product, whether it's in biodiesel or green diesel, that is a good thing for U.S. soy farmers. Today, there are about 8 billion pounds of soybean oil that are used in the production of conventional biodiesel. By 2030, we estimate an additional 8 billion pounds are needed. So that's a huge, huge benefit. But let's talk about tires. Let's talk about Goodyear tires. Goodyear started using soy in their tires and realized that they had a better stickiness to the road with soybeans than they had their traditional stuff. So, stickiness to the road is a good thing for running shoes and all kinds of sneakers, like I mentioned before. Okabashi is a brand that uses soy in their sandals and shoes. You may or may not be familiar with them. If not, Google them and look them up. We have recently a soy bio-based dust suppressant that will also drive soy demand. It has superior air quality when it's sprayed, and it reduces dust-related health problems in areas. The product is odorless, water-soluble, and is a USDA bio-preferred product. Also, Pore Shield is another exciting product that we've recently launched. It's a soy-based concrete product that protects roadways in the U.S. The great thing about Pore Shield is other protectants used to have to, all the workers that put it on used to have to put, big hazmat suits on and worry about it. Completely non-toxic. It works as well or better as the previous thing did. And so we've got it on about, I think, 77 bridge decks, about 330 square feet within Indiana in 2020. It can be replicated across other states. So we're doing some marketing work on Pore Shield. And what about soy-backed artificial grass on playgrounds and rooftops and road medians? Sinlawn is one of our partners, and they've installed about 82 million square feet of U.S. soy-backed artificial grass and turf, about 200,000 installations all over the United States and in 19 different countries. America's largest manufacturer of artificial grass really is into this. We did an event in New York a couple of weeks ago where we put soy turf down, and then we had school children in to talk about soy and what that grass or that artificial grass was made out of. We anticipate the artificial grass category alone will increase the use of U.S. soy by about 10% in the near future. So it's all very exciting products.
Well, as this industry charges forward, we still have the pandemic out there, and it's affected everybody differently by industry. What challenge has it posed for the soybean industry, and how are those challenges being overcome?
I think you mentioned it earlier about the food supply and the supply chains and how consumers are are recognizing that their food comes from somewhere and that the supply chains and the resilience of farmers is incredibly important. So how we overcame those challenges did not go unnoticed by U.S. consumers and by society at large. So the last year and a half has definitely been challenging for everyone, but farmers have always maintained their commitment to doing everything they can to provide soy for the food, for the fuel, for the fiber, for other products. We're very resilient. We're moving forward rapidly despite all the challenges. And of course, agriculture was recognized as critical infrastructure by the U.S. government during the pandemic. And farmers continued to work and provide through the 20 and 21 growing season, provide food for the world. We'll continue to act as an example to others as the pandemic rages on by continuing to improve our product, work safely, sustainably, and effectively. We want to be an example for society about how we can get through a pandemic, how we can be resilient, and how we can come together to produce food for the world.
Well, it's infectious to hear you talk about the industry with such passion. What drives you in your leadership role with the United Soybean Board? What excites you about the future of the soybean industry?
Gosh, I would say there are three things that drive me. Food and farmers are the top two. In other words, food is just so critical to our country and to the world. Many, many relationships are built over food. Many wars are fought over food. And when we're thinking about nourishing and a growing world, we need all kinds of protein. All the protein we can grow in the U.S. we're going to need, be that animal protein, soy protein, or other protein sources. So that's when I think about food. When I think about farmers, I think, gosh, we have a shrinking population of farmers in this country, and only through collaborative efforts of farmers is society going to continue to recognize and realize where food comes from and the importance of food. And so with that shrinking population, and generally with a population that doesn't really think about farming on an everyday basis, then that's going to be really important to help farmers come together and collaborate. And I would say also the last part is this. I find incredible personal satisfaction out of the business of agriculture and what we do every day. And that's why I do what I do every day and why I'm so passionate about it.
Well, we hear it said all the time that agriculture needs to do a better job of telling its story. Aside from what you just told us here, what is the story of U.S. soy?
We think of soy as the solution to many of the world's pressing issues. If it's food security, sustainable energy, sustainability in general, soil health, we are turning science into real world solutions to help build the reputation of U.S. soy globally, to help farmers stay profitable into the future. And we're investing in strategic initiatives to advance our industry and the agriculture industry in general. There are about 515 U.S. soybean farmers. We want to keep them profitable and sustainable into the future.
Well, as I said at the beginning of the show, the future of the U.S. soybean industry is very encouraging, and it's being driven by the innovative and forward-thinking members and leaders of the United Soybean Board. And Polly, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here on Inside Farm Life. We'd love for you to come back again and keep us updated on the latest developments from the United Soybean Board.
I'd sure love that too. Good luck at Farm Progress next week, and thanks so much for the opportunity.
Again, we've been speaking with Polly Ruhland, the CEO of the United Soybean Board. Many companies promise increased yields and a higher return on investment, but again and again, results show that one company stands apart from the rest. Concept Agritech delivers innovative concepts utilizing the latest technologies in agronomy, biology, and chemistry to enhance soil and plant health with seed treatment, planter-applied fertilizers, foliar fertilizers, and full-season soil treatment solutions. To find out how to put Concept Agritech to work for you, visit conceptagritech.com. Concept Agritech. Technology where you need it most. Well, next up on Inside Farm Life, lower than expected ethanol production numbers have made for an interesting week in the corn markets, and Jesse Allen is back to provide some insight in this week's Market Talk update. Jesse.
Well, thank you very much, Brent, and happy to be back for this week's Inside Farm Life with our Market Talk update. We were traveling last week, but able to get back in the studio and provide you with an update here this week. And we're talking with Mike Zuzolo of Global Commodity Analytics, and we saw this past week that ethanol production numbers dropped. They came in lower than the trade was expecting, and you tie that in with just where corn prices are at right now. We've kind of been hanging range bound around this 550 level. Is this an opportunity to maybe put in some puts in the market? What should the strategy be? Cash prices seeing some bids about $1.50 higher than the futures trade right now for ethanol plants. So a lot of things to consider there. Listen back here as we talked with Mike Zuzolo this past Wednesday on Market Talk and got his thoughts on all of that with ethanol and corn and what we should do for our marketing.
Yeah, that 933,000 barrels a day is what we're moving in terms of production, in terms of our crush for corn. That's going to be down about 4% from last week, and that's going to be the lowest number since March. And that's what this chart really shows up nicely is we are, and this is where I go back to that this is not a good chart to look at if you're excited about ethanol and the corn demand, because you're now back to levels that you are producing coming out of COVID instead of way out of COVID and COVID well in the rearview mirror. We're actually going the wrong way in the production cycle. And when I see this chart, Jesse, the first thing I worry about is the issue of EPA maybe giving an out to the refiners through different blending credits and exclusions in terms of blending ethanol into unleaded gas. And this goes back to what Senator Grassley from Iowa said last week when that letter was floating around. He said, it quotes, the EPA is giving a gift to big oil if this letter is correct and this recommendation is correct, and is playing games with the RFS standard law. So that's the half of the chart picture that I do not like. And then the stocks number, though, kind of solidifies maybe the idea that we just don't have the corn out there to be able to get after it, because this stocks number being at the low since July 4th and going through that 52-week moving average, which is the squiggly blue line, we're now back below the 52-week moving average in stocks of ethanol. So we must be using it someplace because the stock levels are going down, even though production levels are going down. So this is why the September delivery of corn and the fact that we're trading $6.50 to $7 cash corn right now against a $5.50 futures price, I think it has a lot of meaning the first 10 days of delivery, especially.
Well, Mike, talking corn, looking at these ethanol numbers, and you mentioned, some of that cash trade and where we're at with futures right now. Let's talk December corn puts and go through this chart with us here we have on the video screen and just talk about your thoughts with this and maybe this strategy right now.
Yeah, kind of combining what we talked about last week with the idea that I'm still stuck at a 175 national yield. So I'm not really eager to sell a lot of cash bushels of corn unless it's for catch up or unless it's in somebody's area where they just see almost a near record corn production number. So that's what I'm looking at as far as buying puts instead of selling cash, especially on the last 50% of sales that I've got for brokerage clients and the last 65% of sales for the cash only clients I work with. So what I do, Jesse, is I use a rule of thumb that implied volatility, and that's your purple line, and it's going to be the left-hand side of the y-axis, or the 28%. That's the percentage of implied volatility of this 550 December corn put. And what I generally go by the mindset of is option volatility is almost just like actual flat price. You buy low and sell high. So if you're going to buy an option, you don't want to buy an option where you're at 42 or 43% volatility like we were back in June of this past year, unless you buy an option and sell an option and kind of offset that. And that's what I was doing. Now you've gotten literally broken the volatility back by almost 15 percentage points just in the last month and a half, 2 months. And so now you got back to a level where the 28% option volatility in this 550 corn put is at its lowest level since March, April. So it's back to being a friend to a buying of an option mindset. So then we take a look at the flat price of that 550 put, which is the black line on the right-hand side. You're trading about 30 and a half cents at this point. You're getting down close to the major lows from the spring and also that low in August. So this is what I'm kind of sending out to clients and subscribers, kind of laying in the weeds, waiting to pounce on this put when both these lines come together and are satisfactory for me to say, okay, this could be a good recommendation and good hedge.
And again, that's comments with Mike Zuzolo of Global Commodity Analytics from this past Wednesday's episode of Market Talk. You can find it online, markettalkag.com, and on all your favorite streaming sources. This has been another Market Talk update for Inside Farm Life in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm Jesse Allen reporting.
And as always, you can find Jesse's daily market updates at markettalkag.com. Again, that's markettalkag.com. And you can find him by searching Market Talk on Facebook. He also appears on the American Ag Network, and you can hear him host Your Ag Today, weekday mornings about 6:50 a.m. Eastern on SiriusXM Satellite Radio, Rural Radio, Channel 147.
For a more dependable, durable, and capable tractor, check out the lineup of high-horsepower Massey Ferguson equipment. The 7700 S Series tractor is loaded with features to increase your comfort and productivity. And if you run a dairy farm, the RB Series balers are built to handle everything your operation demands. Straightforward, dependable, Massey Ferguson equipment. Visit masseyferguson.com to find out more.
Well, next up on Inside Farm Life, we all know about the importance of nitrogen for your crops, but what about the importance of it for your farm tires? In this installment of Bushels and Cents, the hot rod farmer, Ray Bohacz, tells you everything you need to know about nitrogen fill in your tires.
Welcome to Bushels and Cents on Farm Machinery Digest Radio, heard exclusively on SiriusXM Channel 147 Rural Radio. I am your host, Ray Bohacz, the hot rod farmer. And never forget, it is not what you make, but what you keep that counts. Once we understand that air is 78% nitrogen, 21% oxygen, and 1% other gases, the use of nitrogen fill for your farm tires can be an option. Oxygen holds moisture that is created by your shop's compressor. It is the moisture in the tire that is responsible for the pressure variation of 1 psi for every 10-degree Fahrenheit temperature change. Also, the nitrogen molecule is larger, so the natural leakage that occurs in every tire is reduced by 37%. Agriculture runs on machinery, profits on reliability. Visit farmmachinerydigest.com, where steel and soil meet.
And don't forget, you can check out all of Ray Bohacz's great multimedia content at farmmachinerydigest.com, and you can hear him host Farm Machinery Digest Radio on SiriusXM Satellite Radio, Rural Radio, Channel 147. It airs each Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern and again on Sundays at 6 p.m. Eastern, so I hope you go and give him a listen. Gateway Seed Company was founded in 1997 on a simple principle. It doesn't start with the seed, it starts with the farmer. We pride ourselves in doing all we can to understand our customers' farming operations. We take the time to listen to their concerns, then focus on providing a solution to address their specific needs. Gateway Seed offers seed corn with trait packages from Bayer and soybeans with trait packages from Bayer, Corteva, and BASF. To learn more about how Gateway Seed can boost your yields and increase your return on investment, visit gatewayseed.com. Well, with the business out of the way, now it's time to take things back to the country, where our special guest this week has lived country music. And that's not just the title of his new single. Bobby Tomberlin has truly lived country music, and we're going to talk about that a bit today. But first of all, Bobby, welcome into Inside Farm Life.
Well, welcome. I'm glad to be there. If I seem a little addled, I made a quick little trip down the road to grab a little something. I just realized I haven't had anything today. Do you know I went to 3 places and they were all closed?
Yeah, I don't doubt it. But
It was unbelievable. That's the first time that's happened right here in my little vicinity. But yeah, I finally did grab a little something, so I'm all good now.
Things have gotten really crazy here in a short order, but you've been able to get out and do some touring, do some playing. You're up in Michigan last week, out in Carthage, Texas, a few days before that. Man, you've been in a lot of spots.
You know, it's just been a great time. So good to get back out there again and see people, talk to people, play for people. Mo Pitney and I had a great little run in Michigan last week and had some great shows, great crowds. Then Carthage, my goodness. If you've never been to the Texas Country Music Hall of Fame Awards show and their special concerts, I really advise you to do so. They have the greatest country music Hall of Fame, Texas Hall of Fame there. Tommy Ritter with the Tex Ritter family. I mean, you would not believe it. I mean, it's state of the art, and it was so fun being on that show. Tess Roselle and I sang one of her grandmother and Kenny Rogers songs, and you know, Jeannie Seeley was there, and T.G. Shepherd, and oh gosh, it was just a great great night.
Well, we want to get things kicked off this week with a song from Bobby Tomberlin from his Out of Road album. This is Closing Time on Inside Farm Life.
Bartender, won't you pour another round? I got a lot of reasons for sitting here this evening, and don't you know they all revolve around that old familiar story of lost love and glory. Golden hair, the darkest eyes, for a summer she was mine. I wish the bars were always open for hearts that are broken, 'cause heartache doesn't have a closing time. There's nowhere to go at 4 a.m. except crazy as hell or some cheap motel. I can't spend another night in our old bed. There's no sense in sleeping, 'cause I'll end up dreaming of golden hair, the darkest eyes. I'm still hers, but she's not mine. I wish the bars were always open for hearts that are broken, 'cause heartache doesn't have a closing time. Well, I need to be with those 3 friends of mine, tequila, salt, and lime. I wish the bars were always open for hearts that are broken, 'cause heartache doesn't have a closing time. No, heartache doesn't have a closing time. Bartender, won't you pour another round?
And I tell you what, was you got your new single out here, and if they ever made a movie of you, man, I don't know what it'd be, because Forrest Gump has already been done here, so we might have to change it just a little bit here. But another guy out of Alabama, Luverne, Alabama, to be exact, population 2770, and self-proclaimed the friendliest city in the South. Man, country music has been in your blood since the beginning. Tell me a bit about your earliest childhood memories and recollections of country music.
Oh gosh, I can't remember a time when country music wasn't in my life. I mean, I'm told by, I know my cousin Glenda, she always says, "Oh, you were standing on a tree stump singing Hank Williams' I Saw the Light when you were 3 years old." I can remember having a little, toy guitar, then a real guitar, and just totally consumed with the music. Loved great songs, Glenn Campbell, Merle Haggard, and all the greats. And I was really blessed. I recognized really great songs at an early age, and, went to concerts, again, small town, beautiful town, friendly people. I mean, they really are. It may be the friendliest city in the South. But had a make-believe radio station in my bedroom. I've told that story many times. I had a stack of records, and I would do the weather forecast. And one Saturday morning at the Western Auto Store, I don't know how many of you remember Western Auto Stores, but downtown Luverne, there was a Western Auto. And my dad and I were in there, and Mr. Joe Rex Sport, who I'm proud to say is still alive and well in Luverne, he was the superintendent of education, and he also owned the local radio station, WLVN. 1080 on your AM dial. And my dad just says, Bobby is just ate up with music and radio, and can he come down to the radio station? So that afternoon, Mr. Sport let me come down, and his son let me cue up a record I'll never forget. It was off the Hank Williams Jr. and Friends album, a song called Montana Song, and that was the first record I ever queued up and played on the radio. And from there, I worked at that station through high school, and then worked at a couple of more stations, Andalusia and Muscle Shoals, Alabama. And I interviewed, I think we've talked about this, but I interviewed so many artists. It was easy. It seemed like it was really easy back then. There was this magazine, the Billboard Resource magazine, and it had everyone you can imagine's phone number in it, from Eddie Arnold's office to Earl Scruggs, Kitty Wells, and then Hank Williams Jr., Johnny Cash. And I just started making phone calls, and I set up an interview almost every couple of days. And I have numerous cassettes with those interviews, and I just found a box of them about a month ago.
Oh, wow.
And there were some that I thought were gone, like Merle Kilgore and Bill Anderson and David Allen Coe, Bobby Bear, and Farron Young. And I was just so happy that they still played. And I'm definitely going to have those, put over to a CD, put on a CD.
Oh, wow. And I imagine for the most part, even though you're a young guy, folks were pretty gracious to you.
Oh, yeah. And, my voice, it's kind of funny. At 12, 13, it had already gotten kind of low. So they didn't realize they were talking to a 12 or 13-year-old. Now, when I would go to the concerts, my dad or mom, I remember taking me to an Alabama. I mean, when they were like just so red hot. I remember the closer you get to her, they came to Montgomery, and he went with me, and we walked into this press conference, and all the other jocks are just looking like this kid. And I remember asking what turned out to be the best question of the day for Randy O. And he looked bored, and then he was like, "No, okay, that's something I want to talk about." I felt so cool at that point. But
do you remember what the question was?
Well, it was about their June Jam. I mean, it wasn't like the most brilliant question.
Yeah.
He wanted to talk about their June Jam and the money that it raised for, special kids and other charities. And that's really what he wanted to talk about and spread the word about. But I remember going to see Conway and Loretta and Hank Jr. numerous times, and Charlie Pride. And we had this big Hank Williams festival. And it literally, the stage was set up at the birthplace where the old shack used to be, the old home of Hank Sr., where he was born. And that was the first concert I ever went to. It was Hank Jr., the second show he did after the mountain fall. And I was just blown away. He came out there and, he turned that volume to 12 and did Sweet Home Alabama. And I'm like, never heard this before. And that really changed my life.
And not that the world doesn't need another radio personality, but I think you've done pretty okay for yourself, all things considering here. One of the things we haven't talked about in previous interviews, and something that I know our ag crowd here will find fascinating, is the fact that in high school you were a member of an FFA string band. What was that experience like, and what kind of doors did that open up for you?
I told this recently in an interview. If it wasn't for the FFA string band, I don't know that I ever would have seriously got into songwriting. I had dabbled in it, but when I joined the FFA string band, we had an amazing advisor. His name was Wyndham Pittman. He passed away 3 or 4 years ago, but I was really shy. I was hiding behind a microphone. And I was like really shy at school. I mean, even going into the lunchroom, I'd kind of like just have my head down. And then Mr. Pittman, he was told by another band member, Joey Johnson, he says, well, Bobby plays and he sings. And I don't know how he even knew that, to be honest with you. But he did. And Mr. Pittman just informed me, as numerous members of the band were graduating, that year. He said, next year, your senior year, you're going to be one of the lead singers and the lead guitar player. And I'm like, okay. And when we started doing that, and we played everything from parades to beauty pageants to street dances to the Kiwanis Club meetings. It just really lit the fire, and I started writing songs, and we worked up, a couple of them, and I realized quickly they weren't really any good, but it really lit the fire, and we ended up winning the regional and then going to state and doing well, and then we went to the national convention in Kansas City, Missouri, and I knew then I had to come to Nashville eventually.
So outside of that, what did FFA bring to the table for you, and how did that experience help you in life?
Well, I know that conventions were great, being there and seeing all the other members and seeing, where we were in the string band competition. As there's all kinds of competitions, and mainly it was music for me, but at the same time, we did do some farm stuff, and we, worked with greenhouses, and to me, it was just about, it may have been the most important thing. As far as a career, it was the most important subject that I was, that I had. But not only that, but just learning about character and about just being a good person. I mean, it's just like FFA represents all good things to me. And Alan Waters, he's another guy that's worked with, the Alabama FFA. He has been so kind to me. And he invited me maybe 6 years ago to start taking part in the state convention in Montgomery. Now, the past couple of years, due to the pandemic, we haven't been able to go there. But I got to go back there, and I was able to honor my FFA advisor, Mr. Wyndham Pittman, before he passed away, some of the other string band members like Mark Cooper and Lisa Ruhland, who are probably watching down in Alabama. Waller Martin, he was really active that year. So anyway, we all got together and we were able to go and really honor him. And I told all of those kids what FFA meant to me, what it had done for me, and what my advisor had done for me. And that's one of the best days of my life, getting to go back there and honor him. But anyway, just a very important part of my life. And I'm there. I mean, anytime they need me, I'm at the convention, and I'm glad to spread the word about FFA.
So I know we have talked about it before, but for the benefit of this audience who has not had a chance to meet you, many of them, take me through the path from Luverne, Alabama to Nashville, Tennessee.
Okay, I'll try to make it quick. I don't want to get too long-winded, but okay, I'll just be honest with you. After the FFA experience, my dad came up here to Nashville with me, and we drove down Music Row, and I didn't know anyone, didn't know how to get in those buildings. And I'll be honest with you, I went back and thought, I think I'm going to stay in radio. And I was going to go to work at a radio station in Greenville, Alabama. And then I got a call from a lady by the name of Edna. She was Hank Williams' first cousin, and I had known her. She had brought me milkshakes when I was a kid at the radio station. And she just insisted that I go to another town, Andalusia. And she says, we know the manager. That station is a big 100,000 watt station. And I'm like, no, I'm going to, this other station. And she insisted, nope, you're going to go. And she and her husband drove me, insisted that I go to this station to talk to the manager. They needed someone. I walk in, and you got to remember, I had given up on my dream of songwriting. I walk in, and the manager says, see that guy now behind the glass on the FM side? There was an AM and FM. He said, his name is Billy Henderson. He's had success and had several songs recorded, and he writes for Fame Publishing in Muscle Shoals, Rick Hall. And he said he's down here taking care of his parents, and he's going to be going back in a couple of months. But in the meantime, we can put you on the AM, and then when he leaves, we'll move you over to the FM. Well, during that time, he became my songwriter mentor. I started writing again. I pitched him ideas, and he, and he started working on them. And then before I knew it, I had my first demo, which is, for people that don't know, a demonstration recording of a song to pitch to artists. And it was done at Fame Studios in Muscle Shoals. And most of the band members on that session ended up being members of Shenandoah. So I end up, writing, and Billy went back to Muscle Shoals. He contacted me and he said, WLAY, Sherry St. John, they're looking for someone to do the afternoon show. And then I went, had a meeting, and next thing you know, I'm off to Muscle Shoals. I'm roommates with Billy and Mike McGuire of Shenandoah. They were just getting started. And then, started writing with people in that community, including one person, Jim Martin, who has had a lot of songs recorded, and he lives here in Nashville. And he left Muscle Shoals, and I remember thinking, man, why are you leaving here? And he ended up coming to Nashville and was an intern with Mel Tillis. And Mel liked our songs, liked his songs too, but liked ours. I came up here for one of the demo sessions, and they offered me a deal, $100 a week. So I gave my 1 week notice, and then off to Nashville I came and worked at a Kroger grocery store at night. And, and people like Conway Twitty and Brooks and Dunn, Diamond Rio, Crystal Gale, they would come through my checkout line. But anyway, that's my story of my ticket from Luverne to Muscle Shoals to Nashville.
What a great story that I saw you share here in the build up to the single release was how Mel once nearly cost you your job working at Kroger, but then was able to save it by sending a note to the manager.
Oh gosh, I would give anything if I had that excuse that Mel wrote. Yeah, one day Mel was in the office from Branson. He had his theater, and it was just really going strong at that time. But he would come into Nashville, fly in, and be here on Mondays at the office. And he was getting ready to record a gospel record, and he wanted Owen Bradley, the father of Music Row Studios. He built the first studio on Music Row, produced Patsy Cline, Loretta, Ernest Tubb, Conway Twitty, and so many more, Bill Anderson. And anyway, Mel wanted Owen to be involved in this project, and Mel says, hey, you want to ride out to Owen Bradley's? And I'm thinking, I would give anything to go out there, but I have to go to Kroger at 4:00. And he says, well, I'll write you an excuse. And I didn't even call in, and we went out to Owen Bradley's, and I got to witness some great conversation and great old stories. And so I was like 4.5 hours late. And when we got back to the office, Mel wrote the excuse and said, please excuse Bobby. I needed him. And I walked in, and I'll never forget the lady. Her name was Miss Tanner, and she was not happy. And I handed her the excuse, and I said, I'm so sorry. And she says, oh, Mel Tillis. I love Mel Tillis. And, oh, it's fine. It's fine, honey.
Oh, man. Yeah, that'd be something to get that note back, wouldn't it?
Oh, I wish I had it. I wish I'd have made a copy of it at least.
We need to make a quest to see if that's still floating around out there somewhere.
A long time ago.
And I tell you what, in the new song, you chronicle so many of the amazing figures that you've encountered. We're not just talking about meet and greets or superficial relationships, but honest to goodness connections with the who's who of music greats. When I listen to this, like you just kind of walked through the Country Music Hall of Fame and just started pulling names off of plaques and dropping them into the song. But these are the people that who found their way into your sphere of influence there in Nashville. I want to talk about some of them individually here. You talk about singing with the great Loretta Lynn. What do you remember about that experience?
Honestly, being really scared. Her sweet friend and lady who's worked with her for many years, Rosie Hamilton. I've known Rosie for a long time, and I wrote a song with Loretta a few years ago. But Rosie very randomly asked me, would you come and sing Conway and Loretta duet at her 4th of July celebration? And this was like, maybe a 17-hour notice. And of course, I was going to do that. I mean, how do you not sing with Loretta? But we were going to rehearse, and of course, in grand Loretta style, when I got there, she was like, oh, no need to rehearse. And I had never sang with her. And, in front of that many people, it was packed. You want to really do a good job. But we had the key picked. And then when I walk out there, they had dropped it a step.
Oh.
And I went as low as I could go. Instead of once I made a promise, it was like, once I made a promise. So really channeling Conway, but you know what? It turned out great. It was so special. And the next morning afterward, I started thinking about all the cool things that I've been blessed to do. And you mentioned, it's like walking through the Hall of Fame. It kind of is. And the wildest thing about this is I've never chased any of this. I mean, like Mel Tillis signing me to a deal. I didn't even think I was going to come to Nashville. And, and then I'm sound engineer with Bill Anderson. That happened very randomly. I wrote a couple of songs with him. Then he's asking me to be a sound engineer. And I'm like, well, I'm not technical, but I know how the show's, how the music's supposed to sound. I can sure slide those faders. And through that job, I ended up knowing Jeannie Seeley, Little Jimmy Dickens, and so many of these greats. So yeah, it's been very organic.
When you talk about writing songs with the Hall of Fame songwriter Bill Anderson, with whom we also had the opportunity to tour, what about his friendship do you cherish, and what have you learned about the craft of songwriting from him?
Oh gosh, we could do a whole show on my feelings about Bill. Number one, just one of the kindest guys that I've ever known in the business, outside the business. I mean, he truly, truly cares. I mean, he's the kind of guy who will call me and just, after losing my mom last year, he called during that time, and he'll just randomly call, hey, I'm just checking on you and checking on your dad. So, and he's like that with his friends. I mean, that's Bill. And, but just also the thing I love about Bill Anderson is he's been in the business since the late 50s and has continued to get songs recorded. He started out with Ray Price, but during his career, Aretha Franklin, James Brown, Bing Crosby, Conway Twitty, Connie Smith. I mean, we could go on and on and on. But Bill didn't get locked in one. He's true to himself. Now, don't get me wrong, but he has learned to change a little bit with the times and just be open and work with younger writers and just learn. And of course, there's so much to learn from him. And and now you look at his career, and you're talking Brad Paisley, Alison Krauss, Kenny Chesney, Brett Eldridge. I mean, we could go on and on and on. And I've been blessed to have several songs that we've written, recorded, and actually just had a couple of new recordings on a couple of new cuts on a couple of them. And I can't talk about it, but I cannot wait to share the news. But he's fired up. He comes into the writing room, and he is just, it's like, it's like 1964. He's fired up. And then in the midst of it, you'll get some great stories about riding in a car with Patsy Cline to a concert, or him and Roger Miller being roommates. And it's just priceless. Again, I keep saying, oh, that's a highlight. But it's one of the highlights for me of my life is the friendship and also the writing relationship with Bill Anderson.
He's a guy we've never had on the show here. So once he gets that new music out, we need to get him on here to talk about some of those experiences.
Well, I'll help you on that.
There we go.
You can count on me.
Well, you mentioned Little Jimmy Dickens earlier. That was another special bond. He was such a fixture at the Grand Ole Opry for so many years. How did you meet him, and how did that bond develop?
Well, through Bill. We would do a lot of shows together. And then when we would go to the hotel, Jimmy wasn't ready to call it a night, and he and I would end up just hanging out. And next thing you know, that led to, Bobby, would you mind coming over and help me put up Christmas lights? He would, put up all this massive Christmas display every year. Next thing you know, hey, do you mind going with me on a trip to Albuquerque? His tour managers and sweet guy, Robbie, sometimes couldn't go. And I'm like, sure, I will. And then the last year of his life, if I were in town, I would drive him out to the Opry. And I actually drove him to the last performance at the Opry. And I was with him a couple of days before he passed in the hospital. And I really thought he was going to make it. He was up walking, and I was like helping him walk. And I'll never forget, he wanted to be shaved. And So I went to Target and got an electric razor, and I shaved him. And I've never done that before, but I hope I don't cut him, But
now that's living country music right there.
Oh, I'm telling you. And I remember that day, that last time that I was with him at the hospital, I remember pulling up on YouTube footage of him and Merle Haggard at the Ryman, and he would just look at it and hold it. And I remember pulling up a Hank Williams piece, and he and Hank. Now here's another story for you. The last trip to the Ryman, as we were driving to the Ryman, he looked up at me and he said, "Bobby, you don't know about missing someone until you've missed them for over 60 years." He says, "I miss Hank Williams as much today as I did in 1953.
I tell you, and that's powerful, and that's a great segue to what I wanted to ask you about next, and that is kind of the familial bond that you've developed with the legendary Williams family, because we've mentioned before, you're from the heart of Hank Williams country, but you've developed a really close relationship with that whole family, with Hank Sr.'s sister Lucretia and her husband, also Hank Williams Jr. and his children, and you've served as a mentor to Sam along the way, and he's doing some big things now. What does that whole family and that legacy mean to you?
It's really hard to put into words. I kind of getting emotional, actually, even thinking about it, because I don't think about it that much. And the way you just presented it, I guess what I'm thinking about is growing up in my hometown, how at an early age, people would say, "Oh, Hank Williams played there at that school. He played at the community center. He played at the theater, which is now a hardware store. Or he played at the Chevrolet dealership, and that building is still standing there." And I can't tell you how much that lit a fire under me. I think when I say lit a fire, I think that was the beginning, because I looked at it like, wow, he actually went to Nashville. He actually had songs recorded by Tony Bennett and other artists, and he was from just down the road. And, I mentioned the cousin Edna. I think what really got me emotional was thinking about Hank Sr.'s first cousin Edna, how it just hit me how if she hadn't have insisted that I go to that radio station in Andalusia where I met my songwriting mentor, I really don't think I would have pursued it. I really had stopped writing. And so I just feel like, yeah, it's meant so much in so many ways to me. And then, Hillary and Holly, I witnessed the car accident they had, and how Hillary went through over 30 surgeries and fought so hard, died twice, came back. And she never complains. You never hear her complain, but I know she's in a lot of pain. And then I'm also, I guess I get emotional thinking about Katie, that we lost last year. And I'm at my desk, and here's her signature and a little armband. She and her husband, Tyler, actually stayed here at my place just maybe 4 or 5 months before she passed away. And it's just still hard to believe that she's gone, but she was just like an angel. And then, of course, Sam, he is, I've never seen anyone grow so fast with their songwriting. I saw him as a kid, took him to like a Gwen Stefani concert when he was just a little boy. I'll never forget when the concert was over, people had thrown their popcorn boxes down in their Coke cups. And he was like, "We can't go. We can't leave yet. We have to clean up." And then the arena downtown, thousands of people. And he just insisted for a few minutes. And I said, "Okay, buddy," and I helped. I picked up a few things too. And I said, they have people to do that, and they're wanting us to leave the building. And at that moment, I thought, this kid, who even thinks that way? And then, he reached out to me. Again, this is organic. This isn't me going out trying to contact him. He reached out to me on Instagram, and I had seen him, you know, as he grew up and so forth, but it had been 3 or 4 years. And he reached out to me and just said, Bobby, would you mind? I don't want to bother you, but would you take me over to the NSAI, the Nashville Songwriters Association, and introduce me to Bart Herbison? And I said, absolutely. And it didn't take me long to realize what a special gift he had. And we have done a lot of stuff together. I was with him on stage the night of his debut at the Opry. I played with him at the Ryman. I've, you know, first appeared, well, just 2 weeks ago on WSM on the morning show with Bill Cody and Charlie. We've been to Alaska, Michigan. I can't even start naming states, but came back to my hometown of Luverne and did a hometown show. Been to Hank Sr.'s childhood home and sat on the front porch and sang Hank Williams songs. And I could go on and on and on. And then Hank Jr., you know, just, you know, a lot of people don't realize what a really, really good guy he is and what a tender heart he has. And especially someone who literally has been in the spotlight their whole life. You know, think about it. I mean, Hank Jr. was pushed out on stage. There's a legendary picture of him where little Jimmy Dickens is pushing him and his boots are like up in the air, like, I don't want to go. And I just think it's amazing that he has just, you know, survived and succeeded and just I talked to him earlier today. And he said there was 11,000 people at his show over the weekend. And he's like, just unbelievable. He said, and I'm proud. I'm proud for him because it's been a tough time, you know.
And you become a really nice ambassador of sorts too for the Hank Williams Museum there in Montgomery, Alabama, where you've done quite a few live stream shows and tours and performances in front of that legendary blue Cadillac. What does that place mean to you?
Well, it means a lot too, because Daryl and Beth Petty, you know, her dad, Daryl and Beth, their father started that museum, and Merle Kilgore was involved, and of course had Hank Jr.'s endorsement. And you know, they have so many of the suits, shirts, boots, royalty statements, the blue Cadillac that Hank Sr. passed in, and you just have to go there. I mean, I can't even put it into words, and it does mean a lot to me. I was so glad to be able to help out last year, and we did 11 Facebook Lives there to help, you know, sell memorabilia, sell T-shirts, or lifetime memberships, to keep it going during the pandemic. And I was glad to help because they've been really, really kind to me.
And all those were phenomenal. And I tell you, as soon as all this starts to settle down and we can kind of get out and about a bit, hopefully in the new year, that's one of the places I would love to take a live taping and bring some artists in there, because I know there's a ton of great artists that need to be heard out of that area.
Please do that. I'll help you.
I'm looking forward to it, because I personally have not had a chance to go in there, but just seeing all the stuff you've done with them and taking the virtual tours and everything, I'm chomping at the bit to get down there. Well, since we're talking about Hank Williams, how about we share another one from Bobby Tomberlin from his Out of Road album. This is Looking for Audrey on Inside Farm Life.
He poured out of the back of a blue Cadillac, long, tall, and lean, a white cowboy hat, pulled up a stool at the bar, said, I'm looking for Audrey. Took off his coat, lit up a smoke, stared into space, completely heartbroken. And I said, what do you have? He said, I'm looking for Audrey. Same conversation, night after night, shows me that same old picture, an old black and white. That's the love of my life. I'm looking for Audrey. He talks about the miles on the lost highway, how the road and the drinking drove her away. I shake my head when I hear him say, I'm looking for Audrey. Same conversation, night after night, shows me that same old picture, an old black and white. That's the love of my life. I'm looking for Audrey. Night after night shows me that same old picture, an old black and white. That's the love of my life. I'm looking for Audrey. Oh, Miss Audrey. Give her my number if she drops by, and tell her I'm so lonesome I could cry.
And we talk about you rubbing elbows with some of the legendary country music figures. You know, you've proven yourself to be in that same echelon as a songwriter, and I might add also as a singer. You know, we'd be here all day if we rattled off the folks who cut your songs, and name a few: the Oak Ridge Boys, Kenny Rogers, Dolly Parton, Terry Clark, Jeannie Seeley, Blake Shelton, and Jamie Johnson. But the one that really put you on the map was the co-writer of Diamond Rio's One More Day. What has the success of that song meant to your career?
Well, it changed everything for me because, you know, I always tell people it isn't normal. You know, you're working at Kroger, you're making such a small paycheck to write songs, and all of a sudden no one has paid attention to you. And then you get a song on the radio, and in the case of One More Day, I mean, it was really, really, as the guy at BMI says, he said, that's like 4 hits. And because it crossed over into the AC chart and you know, your life changes literally like in 1 week. Just crazy.
So you've been a songwriter for many, many years. When you wrote that particular song, did it feel like just another day at the office, or did it really feel like, man, we really got something here?
No, it didn't feel like another day at the office. I started that song during the holiday season one year, and just started thinking about people that were no longer in my life. And the first verse pretty much fell out, and it was very emotional. And I wasn't even thinking about writing a song, but I realized there was something special there. And I put it on a little recorder, and I wish I still had that work tape, but I was writing with my dear friend, Stephen Dale Jones, who I had met in Muscle Shoals in previous years. And I played it for him, and he just totally got it. He understood it. He connected with it, and off we went, and we finished it. And it wasn't long before that song was recorded. And I never dreamed that it was going to do what it did. I thought we had a shot at a hit, but man, it's just, we started getting so many letters and emails from people saying they'd used it for memorial services, and how it made them think of a child that, you know, they had lost. And that was pretty heavy. That was a lot. Again, going from no attention to, you know, getting Grammy nominations, CMA nominations, ACM, NSAI awards. That's a lot to go through. And, you know, I'm proud to say I didn't get any big ego from it, but it did change my life. It was literally like going, you know, doing sound for a show up in Pennsylvania for Bill, and then just 2 months later, a #1 party, and the great Eddie Arnold is coming in giving a speech, you know, that wasn't even part of the program. And it was very emotional, and had so many friends, people that had just kind of been rooting for me for a long time. And it just meant it was a special day. It was so special, but it did change my life. Next thing you know, I'm on a plane going to LA to write with Mac Davis, you know, a childhood musical hero. I'm writing with Paul Williams. I meet Steve Dorff, who also changed my life in many ways. Such a great, great songwriter. And I had been a fan of his work for a long time, and he knew One More Day. And then he was like, yeah, let's get together. And then all of a sudden, talking about families that mean a lot to you, like the Williams family, well, the Dorr family, his son Andrew was like a little brother to me. And of course, we lost Andrew just like 4 or 5 years ago. And you know, Stephen, the other son, we've ended up doing a movie together, and Chris Christopherson was a part of it. So, I mean, you know, the common thread here is, you know what, just, you never know what's around the corner, and you never know what a new friendship is going to lead to. And I don't mean success. I don't necessarily mean getting songs cut, but that is part of the equation sometimes.
Well, we mentioned earlier the new single, I've Lived Country Music, which is out now. When did you sit down and reflect on your life and say, I really need to put this into song?
The morning after I sang with Loretta Lynn. That song was one of the easiest songs I've ever written, because as Tom T. Hall always said, it's not that hard when you write the truth. And that was definitely the case with that song. And the problem with that song is I had to leave out a lot of names. And even when the video was put together, unfortunately, there's a lot of people, and I'm not talking about country artists, I'm talking about other people that along the way that have helped me. But this video, the one thing that I wanted to have is not just the biggest icons, but just everyone from a childhood friend to my FFA advisor to, you know, my Uncle Robert, you know, who's in one of the early pictures, who showed me the first chords on the guitar, to, you know, and then pictures, of course, with Dolly and Hank Jr. and different people, you know, Merle Haggard. I didn't know Merle, never worked with him, but I did get to shake his hand one day and tell him how much, you know, his words meant to me. So.
And it was cut in legendary Muscle Shoals.
Billy Lawson produced it, and Billy has had a lot of success as a writer and producer. He's been cutting a lot of people down there lately, but it's at the legendary Wishbone Studios where Hank Jr. cut Family Tradition. It's where the people like the Temptations recorded there, Lionel Richie. And here lately, Sammy Kershaw, I think Randy Owen is going in. T. Graham Brown just cut a blues record there. Mm. And it's the magic that never dies. You know, as long as it's there, somebody's going to come and record. That's just the way it is.
Well, it's just incredible work, and I want to share it with you now. This is Bobby Tomberlin with I've Lived Country Music on Inside Farm Life.
Down in Alabama, in a 2 red light town, my world revolved around the radio. And in my little bedroom, the Opry came alive. And in my mind, I was on the front row. I counted down the years till I could drive that old highway to the city where all my dreams could come true. There's been a lot of hard times, but they were all worth it as I look back at all the things I've got to do. Well, I sang with Loretta, wrote songs with Whispering Bill. I even got to play Hank's guitar. Rode the roads with little Jimmy, shook hands with Johnny Cash. Funny how a dream can take you far. I poured my heart and soul into it. Yes, I've lived country music. I sold groceries to Conway Twitty when I first came to Nashville. And Mel Tillis paid my rent. I got to tell Merle Haggard how much his songs meant to me. I swear his words were heaven sent. I was at the Ryman with Bo Cephas In a small room with Glenn Campbell, he played Galveston and I sang along. Had a smoke with Christopherson, Willie Nelson sang my song. I hung out with old George Jones at his home. I poured my heart and soul into it. Yes, I've lived country music. Ate biscuits and gravy with Porter Wagner. Wrote a song with Bobby Bear. Heard Phil Everly sing Dream in his living room. Was with Eddie Arnold in his last days. I played on the Opry stage, and I could feel the spirit of Hank Williams in that room. I've given my heart and soul to it. Yes, I've lived country music. Yes, I've lived country music. And I've lived country music.
That gives me goosebumps, Bobby. That is special.
Thank you so much. And boy, it was so special. Almost 3 weeks ago, I celebrated the release day of the song and the video in my hometown at the local library, and had some very, very close friends and some family members come out. And it was so special being there that day and getting to show the video, there in my hometown. You can't beat that.
And I tell you, we talk about the single, I've Lived Country Music. At the same time, you're writing the success that song. Another writing credit out there that's really special. The great Barbra Streisand recently had an album with the song called I Want It to Be You, which is a duet with another icon, Willie Nelson. How surreal is that?
Very. I definitely didn't expect that. I will have to be honest. I didn't grow up thinking about Barbra Streisand singing any of my songs. Totally just overwhelmed when Steve Dorff called me and told me that was going to be coming out. That was a hard one to believe, but I was sure excited. I mean, they say she's the most successful female vocalist now, as far as chart numbers and the years that she's been in the business and record sales. And, and then Willie Nelson. I mean, the way I look at that, that's the guy that wrote Crazy for Patsy Cline or Hello Walls for Fair and Young. And just to think he would even sing a line of one of my songs is just, and again, I say all of this in a humble way. I'm very grateful. The one hesitation I had about the song I've Lived Country Music, I didn't want anyone to think, it's a song of like, look who I've hung out with, look what I've done. It's just from a very humble place of saying, hey, I'm from a very small 2-light town that I dreamed and just can't believe it happened. And it's not that I've wrote songs or shared a stage with all of those icons. I sold groceries to Conway Twitty. I got to shake Johnny Cash's hand. But just so happens I did get to write songs with Phil Everly and Bill Anderson too. So it's just, again, Streisand and Willie, just, I don't know, very grateful, very thankful.
So from what I understand, the Streisand song took a little while to see the light of day, huh?
Yeah, it did. Originally they went in and tried it a few years ago, but due to schedules and everything, it just didn't work out. I had a cut by Barbara and Blake Shelton on her Partners CD, but this one never came together until this past year, and it couldn't have come along at a better time during a pandemic when nothing was happening. So that was really a gift from God.
Well, you mentioned the pandemic. I mean, this last year and a half has really been a roller coaster for all of us, particularly for yourself, not only dealing with COVID, but your sweet mother, who you mentioned earlier, passed away. What did she instill in you that you still carry with you each day?
Oh God, just the true definition of being a friend, to people, and kindness and and just honesty and just be loving. I mean, that's what I got from my mother. That's the way she always was. And it's just still hard to believe she's gone. And, yeah, it was a rough year, but I just, what do? You got to keep on moving ahead. And, I lost a lot of good friends in the business, not in the business, from my hometown area. And it really, I'm not going to say that I just plowed through it very easily, because I haven't. I mean, there's still days that I have to really fight hard through all of the loss and just trying to, again, to get through it. You just don't lose your mom. You don't lose friends like the great Aaron Wilburn, who I talk to every week, or sweet people like Katie Williams. I mean, those people don't, Jan Howard, who was blessed with a long life, but she was a really good friend. I mean, we had dinner, every couple of months. I mean, so it's just, it's just another world, in a lot of ways. Mac Davis, I still can't believe we lost him. That was so sudden, it seemed like.
Well, and right before your mother's passing, your folks had a fire, and that was a trying time. How's your dad doing?
You know what? He's really strong. He's hanging in there. He's really blessed with such a strong support system. The church there at South Luverne, those people are so wonderful. And they're really there. They show up. They come by. Oh, here's a pie, here. Oh, we brought you this plate from the chicken shack. And I have some, I don't have a big family left. I mean, I'm an only child. And but anyway, he's blessed. Some wonderful cousins that live right there down the street. Actually, this couple, this cousin and his wife, who are wonderful, and then one that lives across the street, and she's been a neighbor for 50 years.
Wow.
So he's very blessed. And, and I try to get down there every time I can, because he does. He I need it too, though, not just him. I mean, I need support as well. You can't do this alone.
Yes. And it sounds like that your parents were very supportive of you as you were coming up and chasing these country music dreams that you had.
They were. I was one of those kids. I'd go to the store, and I didn't go to the toy department. I went to the record rack, and it was a safe time when you could leave your kid at the record rack, and they would say, okay, we'll be back in 30 minutes, or, then go shopping. And I would sit there and try to pick out one record, during that time. And God, those were magical times.
I know exactly what you speak of. And that's, those were definitely beautiful times. What's next on the horizon for you?
Well, actually, I'm still living country music. I'm actually headed to the ACM Honors tonight. I'm going to watch my buddy Sam Williams sing "I Am So Lonesome I Could Cry," and then sing it on the Ryman stage where his granddad performed. And that's going to be special. But, I've got some more shows coming up, writing appointments, and I'll be going back in the studio to cut some more stuff and more music.
Well, Bobby, as we wind down here, if folks want to download your music or keep up with your touring schedule, where can they go to do that?
BobbyTomberlinmusic.com, and then, of course, social media, Bobby Tomberlin.
I tell you what, and I'll just say this out here publicly, I can't tell you how much your friendship means to me, and the times that you've been willing to come on and do this show here. It means the world, and I could sit here all day and listen to these stories.
Well, it means the world to me too, because you've been very, I used the word consistent earlier. You've been one of those consistent people. You're just kind. Every time I see you, it's the same. It's not like, okay, we're doing an interview today, and then I see you a week later and you don't even know who I am. So thank you.
Well, I tell you what, I have not enough people in my corner to be running around acting that way. So, I value every relationship I have here. So this is one that means a lot to me, and it means a lot that you took the time out of your day, especially with other things going on, to do that. And I hope you come back again here soon. I really appreciate you joining us here on Inside Farm Life. And when we return to these live tapings here in another month or so, I would love for you to swing through and we can kind of pick up the conversation there.
Well, we'll do it. And let's definitely do Montgomery, the Hank Williams Museum.
Definitely. Well, we'll get that on the calendar here, and Got a lot. Make sure you're watching this FarmLife Facebook page here. We've got a lot of comings and goings. We got a new website that's poised to launch here. We've been working with the folks at Bubble Up. They do great work. You know, they put out there the sites for Alan Jackson and Brad Paisley, Kenny Chesney, Luke Bryan, even down to Kiss Aerosmith and Jimmy Buffett. And they're getting ready to launch the new website here for farmlifemedia.com. That's going to be coming online here in the next couple of weeks. So be watching that. We're going to have an events calendar on there. You can check everything we've got going on here. We're going to have those live stream tapings, the live in-person tapings, shows, farm shows, conferences, conventions, the whole 9 yards. So we hope you'll come back for that. And if you haven't already done so, we would love for you to subscribe to the Inside Farm Life podcast, where each week we bring you agriculture industry newsmakers, hot button industry issues, educational features, and the best in true country music. It can be found at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Deezer, Audible, Odyssey, and YouTube. And we want to say a special thank you to our friends at AGCO, the presenting sponsor of this week's show. AGCO is going to be the presenting sponsor of all Inside Farm Life shows in the month of August. And we hope you go check them out at the end of this month here at the Farm Progress Show in Decatur, Illinois, where many of their fine products will be on display. Again, you can find them online at agcocorp.com. And at the show, they'll be in lot 303, and I'll be there with them with a mobile studio doing interviews throughout the show. So I hope you stop by and say hi. We'd love to meet you and hear all about your farming operation. We also want to say a special thank you to our additional sponsors, GoatLifeClothing.com, Concept Agritech, and Gateway Seed. Well, friends and neighbors, the clock on the wall tells us it's time to get on out of here. So for now, it's Brent Adams. Let's meet up here again next week, shall we? And hey, bring along a friend.
You've been listening to Inside Farm Life, a production of Farm Life Media. If you have topic suggestions for future episodes, drop us a line at brent@farmlifemedia.com. And be sure to check out our website, farmlifemedia.com.